Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Yarrella Arts and Museum and the opening of Sebastian Toast's exhibition, Seeing Other People. I'm Carrie Kibler, I'm the service leader for Yarrella Arts and Museum, and before we begin our artist talk, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, the Gumbaynggirr people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Big thank you for joining us for tonight for this exhibition and artist talk, and I'm going to hand over to Sebastian, who's going to tell you about the exhibition, how it came about and some of the works.
Thank you. Gosh, thank you so much for coming out on such a beautiful rainy night. I would also like to acknowledge that we are here on Gumbaynggirr country. In the interest of me actually finishing the sentence, I'm probably going to read a bit. Yeah, it's been quite a process. This exhibition was quite unplanned. It wasn't like a idea that I came up with. It came out of a somewhat random, unplanned experience from an opportunity that unexpectedly broadened my practice in ways that I could never have predicted. Seeing other people grew out of this period of concentrated looking and out of having to meet a very specific set of conditions and restraints. The work arrived through pressure, through time, through repetition, and through the act of showing up. I have loved the British version of Portrait Artist of the Year for well over a decade. I loved it so much that my husband and I were looking to relocate to the UK just so I could have an opportunity to be on the show. But then COVID happened and we moved to Coffs Harbour and I found this incredible community, and I must say you guys are an incredible community of like minds and artists and runners and surfers and all of you that make my life here very, very special. But I was invited to take part in the first Portrait Artist of the Year Australian series, and so I was really thrilled, but also terrified. Terrified because I didn't have what's called an alla prima practice. An alla prima is when you paint in one sitting, or as they say, wet into wet. I hadn't really made that part of my practice. I'm much more comfortable with a more slower, more considered way of painting where I have all the time in the world to make corrections and sit with the work. But I was suddenly being asked to work in 4 hours in public under bright lights with, I remember someone saying, "What could go wrong?" I'm like, I just make a horrible painting on national television. Luckily that didn't really happen, but if there's one thing that gets me motivated, it's a challenge. It's also what us artists are best at. Essentially, it's what we're always training for. Adaptation is our modus operandi. Uncertainty is where we thrive. We even caught it. We're comfortable with discomfort, with no rules, with no fixed outcome or reward. Sure, some of us lean into and perhaps relish a bit of drama in that too. In one day in the studio, we swing from a high elation to the deepest depths of despair and then back again, and that's all before lunchtime. After 30 years of making art, you come to expect the swings and roundabouts, and maybe even dance and play a little bit in between. So I digress. I've been drawn to hard things with no obvious endpoint. So I did what I always do when I'm confronted with something difficult. I trained. For 11 weeks, 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, I painted. One subject, one person, same time frame, same conditions as the show. As some of you know, I'm quite into running and I've run all my life. And I'm well beyond the point of winning any more podiums, but I still train as hard as ever. And my one secret for underlying ethos has always been just show up. There's no one workout, there's no one technique, there's no special brushes, there's no magic paint. We're just bricklayers. We just stack bricks hour after hour, day after day, year after year. You do the training, you keep going, you return again and again to the thing, even when you're not sure it's leading anywhere. For my surfing friends, there's a similar feeling there. There's no winning in waves. There's no final score. The poetry is in the moment. It's in this encounter. It's in that being present enough, immersed enough to meet what is in front of you. Painting, like running and surfing, us that same full body, full mind, full lifestyle maybe, commitment to the process rather than trying to have an outcome or a reward. So again, I digress. During that 11-week training for Portrait Artist of the Year, I also went into kind of stealth mode because I'm super competitive. If no one has noticed. I didn't post anything to Instagram. I didn't keep broadcasting the process. I figured out some of the likely suspects that I'd be up against, and I wasn't about to give any of my secrets away. Unbeknownst to me, though, this stealth strategy had some marvelous repercussions for my practice. The self-imposed lockdown became this glorious cocoon of creativity. To show up every day and just do your best, solve a technical problem, hone your craft, and then repeat. I think there's something really, really important about having that time and that sealed off practice. I realized that the last time I'd had this kind of fertile cocooning was in my undergraduate degree in the 90s, which was thankfully well before social media. And it reminded me of how vital this time is for any artist development. To shut the world out for a while and be immersed, like fully immersed, mind, body, and whatever that other thing is, that thing beyond words, the reason we paint and the reason, hopefully, we respond to paint. That stretch of time really felt like I was returning to something essential. So I love restrictions, especially in my art practice. I feel like the more you restrict yourself, the more you build a box and tighten the screws, the more you're challenged. The more restrictions, the more you squeeze, the more pressure, the more your perception and your problem solving get sharpened and are reflexive. It's a bit like a rock being compressed down and becoming a diamond. The container is what matters. And that's because I'm not really the sort of person who's without inspiration or ideas. The moment I wake up, I'm subject to a cascade of thoughts and feelings and perceptions. So for me to organize this onslaught or this slew of information, limitations become hugely important. In this case, it was the limit of 4 hours, one sitter, one shot at it, forcing me to strip away everything unnecessary and get more direct. And this is where that kind of discipline becomes its own kind of freedom. So what came out of that period is what you see here in this exhibition. Some of the works remain 4-hour studies, and others, and maybe half of them, they've been further developed. And after that, there was a brutal editing process. So out of like the 50 works, here is what you see is the final director's cut with the help of Carrie and Vanessa. Yeah, so it really wasn't. It was like maybe 2 weeks before the shooting that I even felt like I had an inkling of how to get the paint down on canvas. That's how crucial it was becoming. But on the day of the shoot, it all came together. It was the second best day of my life, my wedding being the first. I had an absolute ball. I found I had magic brushes. Everything I mixed up was perfect. And I just danced and mixed paint, and they edited so much out. But I had an absolute ball, so the training works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I was lucky that day. I had this incredible feeling of flow, and I feel like I'll be chasing that for my whole life. Surfers know what I mean, that moment of a wave in a barrel taking a drop. It lasts maybe 10, 20 seconds maximum. Like runners, maybe we get a bit more, but it's rare, right? Like maybe you get a 75k mark of a 100k race, or maybe you get it in that last 2 minutes of 5k park run, or 20 seconds. When you submit and you push and you have that total mind-body immersion. So it's that buzz, that flow state that happens. It's so rare, like once a month or once a year or once a decade. It really can't be the reason that we run or surf or paint. Well, for me, it's not. I think it's more about the breaths, or as the Buddhists would say, chop wood, carry water. So I'm just tired of my face does that. So this exhibition is the chopped wood. It is the carried water. It's a result of another editing process. And a whole new thing emerges. So together these paintings trace a shift in method, as well as building on my own ongoing interest in perception, composition and attention. I'm keenly interested in observation as both a discipline and an encounter. So for me, these paintings sit in that space between what is seen and what is felt, between that speed of recognition and the slower, more laboured accumulation of paint. The common thread of my process-based painting is an awareness of how much painting is about translation. Not just the translation of a face or a body, but the translation of a moment into another language altogether. And that's one of the things I love most about painting. It does things that words can't do. It can hold the contradictions, it can hold the uncertainty, it can hold atmosphere, gesture, and a kind of lived scene that resists being reduced to a simple description. For me, painting and music have always felt very linked in this way, like the way a certain chord can evoke a feeling immediately, without explanation. It works on you before you can intellectually unpack why and how. And I really believe that paint can do that too. It's not just illustrative. It's not simply a report. It reaches for something beyond the obvious content of the image. For me, the most satisfying paintings are the ones that still feel open, where the work doesn't close down into a single meaning, but it keeps moving and hopefully living on in the viewer's mind. So I had some very generous friends sit for me in this process because I wanted to imitate the show. But I found it incredibly difficult because of the concentration needed to make sure my sitter was happy and still try and have that full immersion. There's this pressure there and there's this responsibility. I wanted to do them justice. And it kind of got in the way of the work. I actually think some of the most successful paintings here are the ones of people that I don't know. Particularly the ones of the people who have taken the photos themselves, so they're taken from their own selfies. And so that sort of relieved the pressure for me to flatter them or even match their likeness, and it opened this pathway for something else, that other thing to come in. And that really interests me, that difference between a sitter who is physically present and I'm imposing my ideas on them, than an image that's already self-authored. They took the photo, they presented themselves in a certain way. And so it adds another layer of removal for me, because I'm really, really just interested in shapes and colours on a canvas. I know I'm not just interested, but it comes down to that. But I'm drawn to a certain gaze, and I found it really fascinating if you look at the paintings of some of the younger people, how they have just such a different relationship to the camera than I did when I was that age. Like, I only have a handful of photos of myself, and most of them are this. And most of my friends are this. Whereas, you know, these younger subjects are meeting the camera head on. They understand the image as something that's negotiated, as something that's performed even, that's controlled and asserted. Like, all of those things are happening. I really, really enjoyed doing those paintings, mostly. Oh, but yeah, some of these as well. So it opened up this idea of like the generational gaze, And it's not just about youth versus age, it's about how visibility itself has changed. We now live in a world where so much of our identity is constructed through image and through the anticipation of being looked at. These paintings are as much about that as they are about the likeness and the person in front of me. They're about a way a face becomes a site of performance, about self-awareness and resistance. They're about what it means to be seen and perhaps what it means to decide how you see. So there is an academic question in all of this, which I do find interesting too. Like, portraiture has always carried these ideas about representation, about authorship, about power, who sees and who is to be seen, who looks, who is being looked at and who controls the image. What is the relationship between the viewer, the sitter, and the painter? So I'm aware of those questions, but I'm never interested in resolving them neatly. I don't feel like that's my job. I feel like my job as an artist is to pose the questions and then set them among you, the community, to see what happens. So it leads to a bigger question for me: what actually is a portrait? We are more than our appearance, obviously. We are our thoughts, actions, and histories. So we don't get to choose this. So a painted portrait can't fully describe us. So I don't really set out to capture a feeling. What I'm concerned with is setting up the structure, the composition, the color, the value, the relationships across the surface, because that's what us painters are always thinking about when we're working. It's the craft of what we do. It's the language of painting. Not the subject, not the story, but how things are organized, how they sit together, how they move your eye. So again, going back to process, it's that deep interrogation through the craft of painting that allows something else to emerge. So the repetition, the constraints, the filtering, it's not about expressing something directly. It's about setting up this structure. Like you're a director of a film, you set up the actors and then you allow the conditions where something can happen. Is that it? Anyway, at the same time, I'm equally delighted to let the narrative emerge from my work. I do love narrative in others' work and when it emerges of its own volition in my own. I don't want to know exactly how a painting will end up. That would be incredibly boring to me. Part of what's been so exciting about putting this body of work together is that a narrative begins to surface without me controlling it. It comes out of the process, out of the accumulation of decisions and out of the space between the image and the painting. But then it doesn't stop with me. Each of you brings your own thoughts, your own experiences, and constructs something from it. Hello, postmodernism, my old dear friend. Sometimes you come and tell me these stories and the work continues to live beyond the studio, and that feels really important, a really important part of what painting can do. Because I really think painting is still incredibly relevant. We live in a world where images are constant, fast, and disposable. We do the scroll, we scroll and consume, and we stuff our minds full of the stuff. But painting does the opposite. It slows everything down. It asks you to stay, to look longer than is comfortable. And in that slowing down, something else can matter. So for me, these works aren't about capturing people perfectly. Last page, I promise. Half a page. They're records of a period of intense looking, of intense bodily processing, of showing up again and again and trying to understand what it is we're actually seeing and how to give it a human voice. And maybe what painting can do is hold that space between what we recognize and what we can't quite name. So thank you for all of you, for coming, for showing up, for taking the time to look, to engage with the world, with the work, and with each other. huge thanks to my husband for his unwavering support and for not moving out while I went through the process of putting on a show, being on the show, then putting on a show. To my sister and her family who came all the way from regional Victoria. And to my parents who took the train, yes, I said train, for 2 days to get here from Melbourne. I haven't mentioned the other two works in this exhibition of Carly Wilkins and her family, which was another extension of what I consider a portraiture to be, but still started from a idea about colour and space and form, and they were so gracious to be my little abstract elements that I could shift around. And the painting of Raj.
Just out of curiosity, all of the people that you've done portraits of, what would you say have been their receptions of your portraiture? How have they seen your how have they reacted to your representations of them? And have you managed to capture a feeling or emotions within those portraits as well that are appropriate to them?
Do we hand it on to the penguin? Carly?
Well, I found the process of fun and, great to be involved in a series of projects that wasn't mine or my son's or my hubby's, because I enjoy the collaborative aspect. Yeah. But then to see the result, I was stunned how intimate it felt. That's my heart there. That's everything. And it really hit me here, and it's just paint on canvas, and Sebastian's interest in pattern and colour and composition, but it was like, there's heart space for me seeing that. I mean, I think that's in it because that's my family and we're relaxing together too, so it's a bit different to perhaps, although you did that portrait too.
I know, I wonder if it's confronting to see yourself
I would
painted.
say, thanks to the chin, to make really hot.
Where to? What's next, Sebastian, for your practice?
So I was in the middle of these things, and then I went to Italy. I was very into all the frescoes and Giotto and all the old dudes, all the old dead dudes.
You're into old dead dudes. Good.
I know, I need to change.
That's why we're married.
But the early medieval paintings, compositionally, absolutely mind-blowing. So contemporary, their use of flattened space, and so which is what this is about, which is why I sort of wanted to sneak. So I had a whole bunch of them on the go, and they are still kicking around the studio, and was working on that, and then this whole thing upended my life, and then I started a podcast. And then I put this together, and so I'm itching to get back to, broader work, that multi-figure, the easy stuff. But the multi-figure, I am very design orientated. I have design ideas, and this came out of a bunch of still lives where the objects operated as abstract elements, and then Carly was so obliging when I'm like, can I turn you into objects and create paintings that way. So very keen to get back to that. It would be a shifting gears though, because this is lovely to just have the one figure, the central, compositionally it's central, less involved.
If the English Portrait Artist of the Year invited you, would you do it?
Well, after I did it, I had such a ball. I wanted to go again.
Yeah.
Let me go again because it was such a buzz.
But a year later,
a year later, I have opinions that I probably shouldn't say. I'm not sure it's a show for me.
Like, because you really wanted to do the English version, and you
yeah.
were going to move
I was.
to do it.
Well, now they've
But say if they went, oh, as a celebrity, like someone that's been on the Australian
but
one.
they've changed all the judges, so I get to meet Tai Shanjiro.
Oh.
But I don't know if it's a.
Sorry, it wasn't a
if
planted
it's a show
question.
for me. I don't feel like I can do any better.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Of course I'd say yes. I'm such a meteor. No, I don't know. It was a buzz, but how do you repeat a buzz?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe just keep it as a. It's like I don't run races anymore. So can't win anymore. Cripple your head.
Do you watch the UK version?
That was what got me into it,
Yeah.
and really loved it. And now I can't because I get such anxiety. Just ruined my favourite theme. Maybe one day I'll get that. Any other?
Everybody I know believes you should have won.
Can we start an outrage? Thank you. I thought and then I was like,
So did most of the audience.
I'm not allowed to say anything.
Well, I might say a huge thank you to Sebastian for sharing those insights with us and letting us know more about your practice and how this exhibition developed. I also want to do a couple of quick thank yous as well. A big thank you to our senior curator, Vanessa Jacob, who's worked with Sebastian on the exhibition, and to our installers, Cher and Maddie, who have just created such a beautiful space, but really the works speak for themselves. They are incredible. Thank you for supporting arts and culture in Coffs Harbour, and I hope you enjoy the exhibition. And I think I forgot, and of course, congratulations to Sebastian. And please join me all in congratulating her on such an incredible body of work.
Yeah, I'm clapping all over there.
You can stop filming now.
Ready, set, go.